up, it's Steve from the Old Yorkshire Geek, and we're back for the next in my series that I have called something along the lines of my favourite movies for each year that I have been alive, or something like that. So we started in 1967, the year I was born. We're up to 1972. So this is the 5 films, my 5 favourite films of this year. Not necessarily the best films of this year, but they're my 5 favourite films. Mostly horror, oddly enough. 3 horror films and 2 sci-fis. I'm a nerd, geek, whatever you want to call me. Right, so we'll start. We're off and running. The first up in my list. They're not in any order, by the way. They're not in any order. It's not a countdown. It's just the top 5. Take them in any order you want to. So first up is Horror Express, also known as Panic on the Trans-Siberian. It's a Spanish-British horror film starring Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, both as goodies, and Alberto de Mendoza. Lots of Spanish people in this film, but it's set in Russia, as one might be expected. And it's set on a train, and it's a huge amount of fun. And apparently it's a loose adaptation of John W. Campbell's Who Goes There, the book which inspired Things from Another World and John Carpenter's The Thing. So it's a loose adaptation of that, not set at the North Pole or the South Pole. It's set in Siberia on a train. And it features... Christopher Lee is an anthropologist who's found what he thinks is the missing link, frozen in ice, body of a caveman, essentially. And then all shenanigans start happening. We see the caveman has a glowing red eye, and then people start dying. The brains are smoothed out, and it goes all science fiction-y halfway through when we learn the true nature of this creature. And it's a huge amount of fun, despite Telly Savalas being in. Yes, he pops up again. Telly Savalas. I don't like Telly. I've never liked Telly Savalas. Didn't even like Kojak. I've never liked Telly Savalas. I don't like him in the films I see him in, but he keeps popping up in my favourite films, and it's annoying. But never mind. So there we go. So that's Horror Express. Give it a whirl. Next up on the list is another horror film, Tales from the Crypt. Not the new versions. This is the original, based on the comics still. On the EC Comics. This is a British horror film directed by Freddie Francis from Amicus Productions. The horror, like Hammer's main rival in the 70s, who did a lot of portmanteau films, anthology films. And this is one of them. It's a great film with 5 great little stories starring Joan Collins, Ian Hendry, Robin Phillips, Richard Green and Nigel Patrick. It's got and Ralph Richardson as the Crypt Keeper. And it's got 5 great little stories. One with a murderous Santa, one with somebody coming as zombies and stuff. What else is there? I can't remember. I've forgotten. God. One with a chap, the Monkey's Paw story, and others. It's like I say, it's worth it's a jolly good anthology. One of the better ones. Not my favourite of the anthologies, which I think we're coming to. My favourite of the Amicus anthologies, but it's well worth a look. So there we go. That's Tales from the Crypt. Right, next up, going sci-fi now. We're going sci-fi now. Silent Running, one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made, in my opinion. The directorial debut of Douglas Trumbull, the special effects whiz, who worked on like 2001 and this, obviously, and Close Encounters and loads of other stuff. Blade Runner, all them, he's done loads of films, starring Bruce Dern, a few other fellas that you don't care about, and 3 droids. I don't know if they call them droids. I think what they call them now. I can't remember what they call them now. Drones. They call them drones, don't they? And Bruce Dern, the Bruce Dern character, Freeman Lowell, gives them names. He calls them Huey, Dewey and Louie. And you feel more for these robots than any other character in the film, including Bruce Dern. It's a film about the last remaining forests from Earth have been sent into space for some reason, to preserve them, I suppose. But then they get called back to Earth, and they're ordered to detach the domes that the forests are in and destroy and blow them up and Bruce Dern's character, Freeman Lowell, refuses this order and kills his crewmates and sets off into deep space with the forests. And it's an amazing film. That's all I can say. It is an amazing film, and you'll be crying by the end, probably. I usually am. So there we go. So that's Silent Running. Next up, the Planet of the Apes films in the series. This is Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, probably the darkest, the most violent of the Planet of the Apes films. It's set in the near future of 1972. Stars, directed by J. Lee Thompson. Stars Roddy McDowall, who comes back as, not as Cornelius this time, because remember he got killed in the previous film. Spoilers. He comes back as Cornelius and Zira's son, Caesar. So that's Roddy McDowall. Ricardo Montalban is in it. Natalie Trundy, playing a different character. In this one, she plays a chimpanzee. In the previous film, Escape from Planet of the Apes, she played a human, a doctor, I think, if I remember correctly. And then the one before that, she played one of the mutants in Beneath the Planet of the Apes. So she keeps popping up. And it's about apes. Apparently, dogs and cats have died out in some plague. And instead of finding another animal, people decided to domesticate apes, chimps, and gorillas and orangutans. And instead of domesticating, turning them just into pets, they turned them into slaves, essentially, and servants and stuff. And it's all about that, and how there's evil humans, and this particular evil human wants to, wipe out Caesar and all that, and so it's about the ape uprising and how the humans are overthrown eventually. We don't quite see that, but that's the upshot of the ending. And it's worth a watch, and I say it's quite violent. Lots of gunplay and beatings, all that sorts of things. But it is a worthy entry, and it is. I don't know if you can call it fun. It's probably the least fun of the Planet of the Apes films, but it's well worth a look. So that's Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Right, next up, finally, my second favourite of the Hammer Dracula films. This is a controversial take, because a lot of people don't like these two. The next one, I think, is next year, or the year after, whenever, I can't remember. But anyway, Dracula AD 1972. A lot of people don't like this film because it's set in contemporary times, although it begins back in Victorian times, 100 years earlier. It stars Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing as Dracula and Van Helsing. But this is like Peter Cushing plays a descendant of the Van Helsing that fights Dracula in the in the 19th century. And the yummy Stephanie Beecham, so I can't help, she just is. And the equally yummy Carolyn Munro. Who else is in it? Christopher Neame plays a cool baddie called Johnny Alucard. It's great stuff. And various other people for Dracula to feast on. It's a lot of fun. I really like it. I do. I really like this one. But I like the sequel even better, oddly enough. But a lot of people don't like this and its sequel. It's the only really of the Hammer Draculas that is like a film with a direct sequel. They're all loosely connected. But this one has a direct sequel with some of the characters from this film turning up. Well, most of the characters in this film turning up in the sequel. But in one particular instance being played by a different person. But never mind. But anyway, that's Dracula AD 1972. A huge amount of fun. I love this film. But a lot of people don't. But I do. So there we go. So that's my list. Let's go through it one more time. So first up, we've got Horror Express. That was followed by Tales from the Crypt. Then we had Silent Running. Then Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. And finally, Dracula AD 1972. That's my list, my top 5 favourite films of 1972. Not necessarily the best films of 1972. I'm sure there are others. Did The Godfather come out in 72? I think it did. But that wouldn't be on my list because it's not one of my favourite films. Although I do, acknowledge its greatness, but it's not one of my faves. So there we go. So we'll leave it there. So what's coming up in 1973? Let's have a look. Got another favourite of my horror films. One that I'm not going to tell you the names, but one of them is I usually watch as a double bill with the Horror Express because they're kind of similar. But there's that one. Another horror film. Some say the scariest film ever made. A James Bond film. The last of the classic Apes films. Sure you know what that one is. And a classic sci-fi theme park movie. So some clues there for 1973. Anyway, we'll leave it there. So thanks for watching. Wherever you are, look after each other. And until next time, I'll say there.